Welcome to the Echo Tips podcast.
Yippee! Here's a sneak peek into what we're going to cover in this week's episode of the Echo Tips podcast.
Okay, dropping in.
Where you've got large or full screen on one side and then magnified on the other. I think something like that would become really, really handy.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Echo Tips podcast, you returning listeners and you new listeners as well. As you can tell from our opening little prelude, we're going to be dealing with an oldie but a goodie that has kind of changed and morphed and merged into other services over time, and then some of those services were discontinued, and that is related to the drop-in feature on your Amazon Echo. And if you're unfamiliar with that, it's a very interesting feature that allows you to communicate with people that are on your current account, or even family members and friends. The ability to maybe provide assistance, maybe to a family member or the like, or just check in on your, what's going on in the living room. Is the dog on the couch, when you're at work or something like that. So a super handy feature. And actually, this is brought to us by one of our listeners emailing us and asking a question about this very feature and how to turn it on, how to especially allow somebody else to maybe have access to your cameras, or conversely in reverse. I don't know if I did that right. Conversely in reverse. Anyway, allow them to allow access to you to see their cameras and stuff. So we're going to talk all about that, and now that I'm severely confused, here in a little bit, and about how those have changed over time. Some of these things used to be a lot easier. They were merged into services for like caregivers with seniors. There used to be the A-Lady Together program and other things that kind of made this a lot easier, but that being discontinued, you kind of got to bootstrap it, duct tape it, baling wire, chewing gum it together to make it work. And some of those settings have kind of morphed or merged over time where those permissions are. So I think you'll find this very, very useful to y'all. But before we get into that in any sort of detail, I'd like to welcome our new listeners. Welcome to the podcast. I am the host. My name is David Ward. I'm an assistive technology instructor with the New Vision program at Goodwill, based here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Southwest Virginia. And here we deal with, on this show, we've been doing 7 seasons, over 320 episodes, all related to your Amazon Echo. We generally, this is a weekly show, try to keep it somewhere between 15 to 25 minutes in length. Occasionally we'll have a big giant episode we'll label as an omnibus episode, where we take all the goodness of a particular subject and we wedge it together. About reminders, we did one of those, or about alarms, or we did one about all this new AI kerfuffle and innovations and what's happening. We wedged all that together into a giant episode. So those are really kind of nice if you want to kind of get a crash course on a topic you really, really want to understand really good. Maybe like how to use medication reminders and things like that, or use reminders for medications. So those are pretty awesome, and by all means, go back and check out our back catalog. If you have any additional suggestions or thoughts for a future episode, you can email us at info@goodwillvalleys.com, and we'll mention some other ways you can reach out to us on the tail end of the episode as well, on Facebook and Twitter. But before we get into our meat of our matter in any kind of detail, we're going to go to a brief message about our show, and then we will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a non-profit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. And we thank you for listening. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision.
All right, welcome back to the show, guys. So, as I mentioned, this week we're going to be dusting off an oldie but a goodie, and that is the drop-in feature. So what is the drop-in feature at a high level? If you're kind of curious and never heard of this feature, and it's very possible you maybe never have, because it's kind of a little niche kind of, if you knew about it, you'd probably use it, but if you didn't know about it, you just would never discover it by happenstance. What the drop-in feature has been historically is this ability to basically place a phone call to another device, but without the need of somebody needing to pick up necessarily on the other end. So it's almost kind of like an intercom feature where you press the button and immediately, or the verbal command in this case, and you're immediately connected to the other end of the speaker to somewhere else, and that person can talk to you and you can talk back to them. So in a simple environment, say you're in a multi-story house, right? And you're upstairs in your office working and you're trying to reach your wife who you know is down in the kitchen working on lunch for today or dinner or something. And you can just drop into an Amazon Echo in the kitchen. Say, hey, honey, how's it coming? Is it almost done? I'll wrap things up. Or you could drop in down with the kids all the way down in the basement, maybe in their playroom on the weekends, and see if they want to go get ice cream or something, right? And so you can specify the Echo that you want to drop into anywhere on your account. Now, let's just give it a try. I'm going to drop in on my living room. All right. Oh, by the way, I'm about to start saying the A-Lady name, so if you have an Amazon Echo in hearing distance of my voice, I've got out of practice. If you hear that, you may want to shut its ears off. Those suckers can hear you all the way across the house. But anyway, you're always welcome to pause the show and then come back. Okay, because we say the name for real on this show. Okay, all right, so here we go. Alexa, drop in on living room.
Okay, dropping in.
Mm-hmm.
Where you've got large or full screen on one side and then magnified on the other. I think something like that would become really, really handy because
Alexa, hang up. Okay, well, there we go. All right. So let me mute the ears of my A-Lady here now if I can. All right, so there we go. So that wasn't exactly a perfect demonstration. I had to kind of like duct tape together two components there for you guys. I think it's because it's a little wiggy because I'm Bluetoothing this into our mixer so you guys can hear what I'm doing. And that got a little funky because I think there was some sort of Bluetooth pass through when it connects to the one out in the living room. And then was trying to hang up, and I have never had anything like that happen before. And then it wouldn't hang up. I couldn't hang up. And I've never encountered this. But anyway, now, the audio that you heard where I dropped in is actually a podcast playing on another appliance or media player sitting in my living room next to my Amazon Echo. And I just had that there playing so that, you just didn't hear, crickets there in the background. You actually knew you were piped in somewhere. But as you can imagine, you're typically going to drop into a room where there's somebody you need to talk to, or if it's an Amazon Echo with a screen and you're talking to them on an Amazon Echo with a screen or on your phone, you can see through that camera and see what's going on in the room as well. And it's kind of a limited camera, but maybe if you had it pointed towards the couch or something, you could see whether the dog's on the couch or something like, get off the couch, Ralph, off the couch, whatever, right? So there's a variety of applications that you could use there. Now, this is just the primitive. I'm dropping in on any kind of device in my home. But that's not the only way you can use this. You can also use this to drop in on others. Now, this may be especially useful in a caregiver situation. Maybe you want to check up on an elderly parent or family member, or somebody with maybe some sort of special needs or the like. You may want to drop in on them. And so you can enable this feature, and that was actually the request that one of our listeners made, is how do you find this feature? Okay, so I'm going to give you a crash course on that with our app. So you're going to follow along with me and open up the A-Lady app on your iPhone or Android phone. And I have my iPhone set to talk to me. So you're going to hear it talking here a little bit in the background, but we're going to go through these steps one by one. Okay, I suspect the layout in the Android and iPhone app are pretty much identical. Where we want to go for this drop-in feature is down near the bottom left-hand corner. You're looking for the More button here, so it has 3 lines on it. And my phone's going to be talking to us, just a reminder there.
Devices,
so.
tab, 2 of 3.
Not devices.
More, tab, 3 of 3.
It's got like 3 different lines of different links on it. Okay, so we're going to tap on that.
Selected, more, tab, 3 of 3.
All right, now we're in that page, and you have a number of options near the top. They've kind of spread this out and got a lot of stuff in here at this point, and some of it has come and some of it is gone. You want to go to the one in the top right, at least that's where it is in my column listing here, and that is Communicate.
Communicate.
And you'll tap on that.
Communication.
Okay, now you're going to have a list of contacts that you already, Amazon has already made a connection between you and them, that you both have Amazon Echoes and Amazon accounts. And it uses your address book to figure that out. So if it sees somebody in your address book listed Peggy Sue with their phone number, it'll run that against its back-end database to see if they have an account and an A-lady that has that. And if they do, then they'll allow you guys to connect. So to give you guys an idea of somebody, this would be, if I want, at this moment, I'm logged in as me to all my Amazon Echoes and my Echo account. Let's say I wanted to grant it to my sister, the ability for her to drop in on any of my Amazon Echoes. So I can go to my sister here. Let me find her.
MH Mary Harvish.
All right, so there's my baby sister. So I'm going to select her.
Close button.
Now here down near the bottom of this is what you're looking for.
Share photos and videos. View contact button.
View contact. So we're going to go to View Contact.
Back button.
Now on the next page, you have a lot of their details and stuff like that. I'm just going to go down to the second page, which is where we're going to find the controls we want.
3 of 3.
Okay. So I've scrolled down to the next page, and here's the button you're looking for.
Allow drop-in contact can drop in on my Echo devices.
Allow drop-in contact. So that is one of the services that you, if you enable that, if I enable that right now, my baby sister could drop in on my Amazon Echoes. Now, I think there are restrictions for that. Like if I have an Echo set to Do Not Disturb, she could not drop on that. I can't even drop in on that myself. I found out that yesterday I was trying to drop in onto my office or something. It was set to Do Not Disturb, and it wouldn't allow me to do so. This would include Echoes with screens or cameras and ones without screens. And obviously, if you had an Echo with a camera on it, you can usually push that to shut that off. Or a shutter sometimes, and obviously if the shutter's closed, they're not going to see anything either. Also, case by case, you can my screen's probably about to fall asleep. So also on a case by case basis, if you go to devices and individual settings by going to the gear icon in the top for each one of your Amazon Echoes, you could say in the bedroom, I want to disable any kind of drop-in or communication service. So you would scroll down to the bottom of the list, you'd find communication, and you would just disable that or shut off drop-in capability. And that would go for you or anybody who you had granted permission to drop in for. So that would be neutered, that'd be off. Okay, I think that kind of crash courses most of this. So if you had a family member or you were in a caregiving situation and say, I was trying to help Peggy Sue, she was an elderly aunt of mine, I want to be able to look in on her, make sure she hadn't fallen in the kitchen again or something, I would need to be logged into her account, go in here and find myself, and then grant myself that permission. Now we'll talk about how that used to be a little easier, but isn't anymore. But let's look at a few other things in here that I haven't really delved into. We might do a future episode on this. Look at this.
Connect Our Kids, send an invitation to chat on Alexa with Amazon Kids Invite. Link.
Kids Invite? Connect Kids. So this seems to be a similar kind of concept. It may not be a drop-in feature. It's probably a calling feature requiring the person on the other end to actually acknowledge and say, yes, answer. So that's the chief difference between a call and a drop-in. But this looks like this may be a feature that you could enable as a parent. And maybe, little Johnny wants to work on his homework with his best friend, Phil. And you could maybe enable this and probably have some different parental safeguards and can't do it after 8 o'clock at night or something like that. So you probably have some options in there. I've never dug into this, but it's there. Here's another one you want to know about.
Add as emergency contact button.
Add as an emergency contact. So this is usually like a free, I think, service, a call tree style thing, but you could dig into that and make sure it isn't connected to a paid service. But where like you could say, in this case, this is my sister's account, right? My her contact card in my stuff. I could list her as an emergency contact. So in other words, if I call out saying I need help, right? It would call her, depending on where she was in the call list, and say, hey, Dave needs some help, and so that's an interesting feature as well. So these are kind of all tangentially connected to the fact that we no longer have a service. And in fact, well, let me shut my phone off here while we talk about that. Okay, so this used to be a little easier. We had a service called A Lady Together, Alexa Together. This was specifically made for caregiver situations, and it was a paid-for service. It may have had a free, in fact, I'm pretty positive it did. It had like a free entry-level service, and then I don't know if they called it Plus or what, but it was a paid-for higher tier. And I know this because I did a demo on the show months ago about connecting, I think, or years ago about with my parents just to see how it would work. And basically it was like what we've observed here, except it had the invitation component. You would check it and say, hey, send an invite to my parents, and it would pop up on their phone and in their account and say, hey, Dave is offering to be of some assistance. Would you like to grant him drop-in capability to your kitchen camera or something like that? And would you also allow him to be able to, monitor and make sure that, you're up and around and some basic things like that? And it would filter a lot of privacy things. It would just basically tell you the first time mom or dad used their Amazon Echo that day. So, they were alive and they were up and moving around and doing things. And it later added a service, I think it was part of the paid tier, where you could do remote support too. So like you could actually make customizations if they got their Echo really messed up bad. You could change the volume back to what it needed to be, fix the music provider, or probably more importantly, maybe reset routines or alarms, maybe for medication reminders or something, and you could go in there and do that on their account, basically, for them, basically. And this was all part of A Lady Together service. Now, based on my research, that was terminated a few months ago, or is going to be. So, as best as I can tell, is a terminated service. So you're going to have to kind of baling wire, duct tape, chewing gum this thing together to make it all work. And so you still have the drop-in features we just observed, and that's a powerful tool in your toolbox. Now let's look at one more thing I want to highlight because it may be in this space. So let's open up our app again. Okay, so we're going to go to the More button again.
Selected. More. Tab. 3 of 3.
And now in this list, at least on my phone, up where we had communicate, there's 2 columns, but there's this button here, or you could swipe.
Page 1 of 2. Adjustable.
Where you got multiple pages of options here. I'm going to go to the second page.
Page 2 of 2.
And on the second page, if we tap here, let's see.
Follow updates.
Top left corner.
Emergency assist.
Emergency assist. So in addition to, I believe, the free thing where it can call my sister and tell her, hey, Dave needs help, you also have this call assist feature where it's actually you pay for a professional service where it's 24/7 manned by operators that answer for you or a family member that you set this up for. And they basically can triage the call and see if they need to call the fire department, do they need to call the police, do they need to call the EMTs, maybe, whatever. And you can also in there list maybe, my mom or aunt has diabetes or has high blood pressure, is on these medications. So you can list all that stuff and it can be immediately relayed. Also, I think it has some additional services in there like listening for smoke detectors, breaking glass, different things like that in the house, and can connect to that service as well. They hear breaking glass, it automatically calls an operator and somebody says, hey, are you okay? We heard breaking glass, just checking on you, Peggy Sue. And you can relay to them. So super helpful. Okay, I think that's all we're going to look at in the app today. So, drop-in is still capable, a feature there. Unfortunately, you got to kind of do a little MacGyvering to make it work. So, just as a revisit, if Peggy Sue you wanted to be able to drop in on her like kitchen camera, Peggy Sue, you need to be logged into Peggy Sue's account, or if she's got an app with it all already set up on her phone, you log in there and find that setting where it would authorize you. Okay, so that basically wraps things up for this week. If you have any thoughts or suggestions about a future episode, you're welcome to reach out to us at info@goodwillvalleys.com, or you can post a post on Facebook or Twitter, now known as X, to us at Goodwill Industries of the Valley. So that would be who you would mention. And just in the post or the email, mention you're trying to reach the Echo Tips podcast or Dave of the New Vision program, and that way that message will be directed to me. Well, until next time, we'd love to hear your feedback and your continued suggestions. And until then, it's time to turn the ears of your Echo on, start practicing some of the many, many things that you've learned. I'm David Ward for the New Vision program, and we do thank you for listening.
This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a non-profit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. And we thank you for listening. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision.